We are what we eat, and all too often we find ourselves tempted by the delicacies of the new Pharisee. Who is this fellow or fellowette? The individual, we do not know who assigned them with the responsibility to discern every wrong, every infraction of every perceived rule that the discernment blogger makes up in his or her head and then talks about it before the world. This is a leaven that is poisonous. If you consume anything besides what is pure, lovely, worthy of praise, chances are really good you're going to become what you consume. Before we get to the dangers of becoming the very thing that we are now talking about, the nasty, snarky, condescending, seemingly angry discernment blogger who just ginsu knives pretty much everybody, a couple more quotes from Eric Davis. If you do not conform to the new Pharisees' man-centered, man-made standards, you'll become the recipient of anger and unforgiveness, ironically. If you dare challenge them, even gently, brace yourself, you'll become the object of hate-filled verbal violence. Your name will be dragged through miles of social media mud. If I named names of some of these discernment podcasters or bloggers, wah and la, we become the subject of their fodder. That's the irony to these circular firing squads, the undiscerning discernment ministries. They shoot at everybody. It doesn't matter your track record. One infraction, bang, you're out. You're against me, bang, bang, you're really out. That is the irony and the tragedy of discernment bloggers. They ultimately are the last man standing because nobody meets up to their standard. That is a new kind of Pharisee. One more kidney punch. They tend to attack without asking questions for clarification. The buzz, it's there. You don't ask questions when you're a Pharisee. The intoxication is too good. Just jump, revile, just cry foul, and it's all good because you'll have plenty of others also strung out on the self-actualizing crack to affirm the utterly self-righteous, presumptuous tactic. And today, sadly, their spiritual crack is available for cheap on every corner of Twitter. It's all so easy. It's all so intoxicating. And it's all so utterly sinful and self-righteous. Suddenly, you and I just got caught in that gunfire aimed at the new Pharisee. Let's forget the writers and the speakers of the discernment world. What about us? What about the consumers? There's got to be an audience for this, and there is. This is not to besmirch any particular news network because, frankly, they all pander, they all play to an audience. The liberal media, they pander to their audience that they know will just gobble it up, and so do the conservative networks. They feed what the audience will consume, and if there are not consumers, they ain't going to offer it up because that doesn't keep you in business. Ditto with the new Pharisee. Somebody's reading this stuff. If nobody were reading a snarky, ill-conceived discernment blog, listening to a podcast that is just with just about everyone and everything, if they don't have an audience, they'll stop doing it. Sadly, it kind of tickles our ears. I know, I see this stuff, and it's easy to just dive in, and sadly, we become just like them. We are what we eat. So if you and I are consuming a lot of really sharp, rather critical, rather mean-spirited discernment glop, then we're going to become like that. Byron Yawn warning us, be careful what you consume. Before you know it, in a blink of an eye, imperceptibly, you will go from having a critical mind, which we are called to have to be good Bereans, but will move into the territory of having a critical spirit, which we are forbidden to have. Let's take a look at the warnings. The danger of defining yourself by what you're against. You'll forget to talk about what's good, especially about Jesus. It's intoxicating. It's fun. It tends to be our bent. It's sadly, and I'm not just pointing a finger at you, it really sings to our pride. Believe this guy. I mean, how tragic is that? How sad is that? Now, please note, it's not that discernment is something that we should avoid like the plague. That's not what is being defined here. What is being described is the nasty, ugly, undiscerning discernment, which is just plain critical. When you and I focus on that, it feeds us, it stokes us, it makes us feel better about ourselves. It's almost like social media, just, oh, bing, bing, somebody's after. We like consuming that stuff. Sadly, we end up falling into the ditch of only consuming that stuff and not consuming things that are pure, lovely, and worthy of praise. Danger number 2. You'll begin to take yourself way too seriously. Oh, it's true. Because after all, when the weight of the discernment world is on your shoulders, when you, with maybe just a few others, are the only people who really understand everything, you become a little bit too self-absorbed. Please note, before we continue to take more kidney punches, this is a word for me. This is a word for you. This is a word for all of us. And we would do very poorly if we didn't make the distinction between good discerning and bad discerning. Good discerning is good. Bad discerning, what's the word I'm looking for, is bad.